veteran suicide. Veterans are disproportionately affected by conditions such as PTSD, TBI, depression, and chronic pain. And with this reclassification, it will allow research to be conducted with regard to cannabis. There is anecdotal evidence that cannabis benefits these conditions, and now we'll have an opportunity to see if research does prove that it is effective. And if it is so, then it'll open up a whole new method of treatment for our veterans with regard to this particular issue. And so, again, I just want to thank you for your leadership, and thank you on behalf of the American Legion for this executive order.
Thank you. Such great people.
Thank you very much, Mr.
That have
President.
suffered and will suffer a lot less now.
You're right.
Based on what I hear.
Good
Anybody
afternoon.
else, please.
I'm Nora Volkov. I'm Director National Institute on Drug Abuse. And for us, that rescheduling opens the door to actually be able to accelerate the rate at which we can do research and discovery. And research is crucial in order for us to, for example, understand what may be and for whom the dangers of cannabis. Yes, cannabis can be addictive. And certainly people, adolescents and children may be the most vulnerable. But we cannot close our eyes to research and the opportunity that we are hearing from patients that for some of them, cannabis can solve their problem. And so what we need to do is do research, number one, to understand what are those conditions. Number two, in order to be able to optimally learn how to use it. And to understand, number three, who is at danger. And it is knowledge that will allow us to optimally take the benefits that may be behind cannabis, as research shows, but on the other hand, also enable us better to do prevention interventions to protect those that are most vulnerable. So thanks very much.
Great job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor. Bobby, do you have something to say?
I'll just echo thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your leadership and vision and finally getting to closure on this issue. This is a question, a scientific question, that has divided our country for many, many years. And there are valid claims on both sides. On one side, patients and physicians attest that cannabinoids and THC can have miraculous effects on chronic pain, on epilepsy, on PTSD, on chemotherapy-induced nausea. My friend Howard Kessler, without whom we wouldn't be here today, drove this change in the schedule, and he did it because of his own experience in mitigating the impacts of chemotherapy. He has nothing to gain from this. He just saw something that worked for him, that worked for thousands of other Americans, and he wants to make it available to them. On the other side, there are valid claims about the negative impacts, about addiction, about psychosis, about adverse public health impacts, and impacts particularly on young people. So we haven't been, the evidence on all of these is anecdotal and it's hypothetical because we have not been able to do scientific studies. There is no standardized dosing. And if you don't have standardized dosing, any study that you do is comparing apples to pears. And we don't know the difference between botanicals and synthetics, and all of these questions we're now going to be able to answer. 5 administrations have promised to act on this issue. The Biden administration promised to do this, and the proposal began during the Biden administration. It got mired down in the chaos and inertia and disorganization of that. And I want to thank President Trump, who made the promise during the 2024 election that he was going to come in and solve this issue, that he was going to take decisive action, and he has kept that promise today. And so thank you for President Trump for your vision. And because of that, we will have answers very soon. This will finally allow us to study this issue and to answer these questions for the American people.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Howard Kessler, a friend of mine, one of the most successful people in the country, came to see me on more than one occasion, actually. and he had some real difficulty about 3.5, 4 years ago, and he went through hell. And during his going through hell, he probably sampled everything you can sample when you're going through that, Howard.
For sure.
And he came to me, he said, there's been nothing like this, and we're going to have to take a good, strong look at it, and that's what he asked me to do. And others have likewise said that, many others. I mean, you know, again, it's, I've never been inundated by so many people as I have about this particular reclassification. And I don't know that you have anything to say, Howard. If you'd like, you could say whatever you
I
like.
just want to help the people 65 and over and make a difference in their lives. And we have machines and talent that could do it, not in 8-year clinical trials, but in a year. And we're going to prove that to change the world, really, in healthcare. So thank you, Mr. President.
And I'm far younger than 65, so this does not pertain to me. Thank you. I don't want it, okay? I'm not going to be taking it, but a lot of people do want it. A lot of people need it, and thank you, Howard, for
I appreciate it.
really opening a lot of eyes. Okay, we'll sign it. We'll take some questions from the press. You can ask the doctor some questions, and it's an honor to do this. That's a good one. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Yes.
a health-related question on your health care plan. You've said you want to make direct payments to Americans, but these Obamacare subsidies are expiring now in a matter of just a few days. More than 20 million Americans are now bracing for their premiums to skyrocket. Are you going to
Because
let
of
this
Obama.
happen, or
Yeah,
will you
because-
intervene?
Yeah, they will skyrocket because it was never any good. I'd like to see the money that is going to the insurance companies by the hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, their stocks are up 1,400%, 1,800%, and 1,624%. Their stocks are up through the roof over a fairly short period of time because they're getting vast amounts of money. I want that money to go to the people directly and let the people buy their own health care. And they'll get much better health care than they get with the Unaffordable Care Act, as it's known by a lot of people. It is virtually unaffordable for people. It's a bad thing. We can have a great thing. Let the money go directly to the people and let them buy their own health care.
But this is an urgent problem, Mr. President. Is there anything you can do now, Mr. President?
Can I answer, Mr.
This
President?
is going to be right now, as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead.
We just got data today. We have federal exchanges where people come shopping for the ACA. And the president hasn't heard this yet, but we've talked to the team. The percentage change from last year was down 2.7 to 2.8%. Not the massive numbers that have been predicted. And there's many possible reasons for this. But right now, Americans are signing up for these programs, despite all the things that have been going on. 2.8% is a tiny fraction of what many had claimed would happen. And I think it speaks to the fact the American people appreciate these ACA plans are already subsidized over 80%. So it's a good deal, even if you don't get the extra 15, 20%.
It's a great solution to much better health care at a much lower cost. Yeah,
And
please.
when will we see
But do you
that?
want Congress to extend these ACA subsidies?
Well, I'd like not to be able to do it. I'd like to get right into this and I'd ask Oz this question in particular, but I'd like to see us get right into this. I don't know why we have to extend. This could be done rapidly if the Democrats would come along. We have a problem. The insurance companies own the Democrat Party. They own it. And the Democrats having a hard time. They give a lot of money to the Democrats. Very little money to Republicans, by the way. A lot of money to Democrats. And they're going to have to decide, do they want to do the right thing or do they want to be beholden to the, insurance companies? They're making a fortune. I want the money to go to the people. Go ahead, Oz. How would you say that?
I agree with the president. We have some ideas out there. Congress is working through some concepts. But I just want to emphasize that the ACAs are not imploding based on the data we just received from the federal marketplace.
This can go very quickly, actually. Yes, please.
Mr. President, can I ask you, clarify something for me on the Federal Reserve? How many people are you interviewing for the Fed chairman, and what did you think of Chris Waller?
I think he's great. I mean, he's been a man who's been there a long time, somebody that I was very involved with, sense of his career, and he's a fantastic man. I met him yesterday, again.
So how many people are you looking at?
We're talking to 3 or 4. I think every one of them would be a good choice, honestly.
Michelle Bowman?
We'll be making a decision pretty
Is
quick.
Michelle Bowman on that list too? Are you going to interview her?
She's fantastic. She's a fantastic person.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some GOP lawmakers have written to you in recent days saying they're concerned this executive order could normalize drug use for youth. How would you respond to them?
You're talking about this particular today? Well, I think I'd let one of the doctors respond to it because they can do it a lot better than me. But I can only tell you that when you see polls of 82% of the people want this, when I have friends that are really, really sick and they've gone through, I guess you could say, unfortunately, I don't want to become too involved in it because I don't want it happening. But these are people that really know what's going on. Very smart people. This is one of the most successful people in the country and a very brilliant guy. And when they go through this horrible ordeal of cancer or other things, and they realize that this is something that makes them feel better without all of the side effects of some of the drugs where you're just totally knocked out and out of it. But I'd like to have one of the doctors maybe respond because you people do it better than anybody.
I'm happy to respond.
Yes.
I mean, and my answer is we have had cannabis scheduled for how long? And it hasn't protected neither the adolescents nor the adults. We have 20 million people in the United States with a cannabis use disorder. This is not legalizing it. It's making easier to do research so that we can use it when it is indicated and optimally.
So it's also a big part of this is research. In other words, you'll now have a much larger sample and you'll be able to see if it's as good as many people say it is. I mean, people say it is beyond good, and you'll be able to find that out now.
On housing, you talked in your address last night about housing.
Yeah.
Are you still considering a national emergency over housing?
I'm looking at it.
What would
yeah,
that look
I'm
like?
looking
What would
at
that
it.
mobilize?
You know, there's 2 thoughts on housing. You have a lot of people have housing that because we have such a strong time and such a strong market, their houses are very valuable. It's a big part of their net worth, their house. I don't want to knock those numbers down because I want them to continue to have a big value for their house. At the same time, I want to make it possible for young people out there and other people to buy housing. In a way, they're at conflict. In other words, you create a lot of housing all of a sudden, and it drives the housing prices down. So I want to take care of the people that have houses that have a value to, to their house that they never thought possible, that have sort of made them wealthy and happy, and especially in their later years. Got to be careful with that. I want to keep them up. At the same time, I want to make it possible for people to go buy houses. Daniel, please.
Mr. President, you announced the Warriors dividend
Yeah.
last night in your primetime speech. Very patriotic, very generous. What was the rationale and the thought process? How did you come up with the idea? What made you want to give back to
Well, the
workers?
1776 was easy to come up with because we were actually in 1775. The number was 1775, and I said, wow, I think we can afford one more dollar. But they came up to me, it was $1,775. So I said, well, let's add $1 to it. I think we can find that. And very simple, we've had a military that, in my opinion, by other presidents was not treated well. They're incredible. They're our finest people. They're protecting us. And because of tariffs, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars more than we ever have before, with no inflation, by the way, with no inflation. You saw the inflation numbers. They just came out today. What great timing. Practically no inflation. And yet we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And this is small potatoes by comparison, but it's a way of taking care of our warriors, our soldiers. And I appreciate that question, Daniel.
Yeah, and Caroline
It was
Levitt
an
just
easy
posted-
one.
She just posted on X, your press secretary, that the board members of the
Yeah.
Kennedy Center voted unanimously to rename it the Trump Kennedy Center. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I was honored by it. The board is a very distinguished board, most distinguished people in the country. And I was surprised by it, and I was honored by it. You know, we're saving the building. We saved the building. The building was in such bad shape, both physically, financially, and every other way, and now it's very solid, very strong. We have something going on television, I guess on the 23rd December. I think it's going to get very big ratings, and the Kennedy Center is really back strongly. It's in very bad shape, very, very bad shape physically. And we were also to get Congress to put up a lot of money and other people to put up a lot of money. We had a lot of donors come in for record-setting numbers, so we saved the Kennedy Center, and I was really, this was brought up by one of the very distinguished board members, and they voted on it, and there's a lot of board members, and they voted unanimously, so I was very honored by it. Thank you.
Mr. President, will you be seeking any authorization from Congress for any land attacks on cartels in Venezuela?
For anyone?
For any land attacks on drug cartels in Venezuela?
I wouldn't mind telling them, but it's not a big deal. I don't have to tell them. It's been proven. But I wouldn't mind at all. I just hope they wouldn't leak it. You have people leak it. They are politicians and they leak like a sieve. But I'd have no problem doing that.
On that, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
Mr. President, there's a meeting this weekend on Ukraine in Florida. What are you hoping will come out of that meeting?
Well, they're getting close to something, but I hope Ukraine moves quickly. I hope Ukraine moves quickly because Russia's there. And, every time they take too much time, then Russia changes their mind. 27,000 soldiers were killed last month. Think of that. What do you think of that, doctors? 27,000. It's like a half a football stadium were killed in 1 month. And it's that way. It's anywhere between 20 and 30,000, mostly soldiers, also some people from Kiev and other places. But largely, it's the soldiers. They're losing their lives. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It's the worst since World War II. And, you've heard me say I settled 8 wars, some going on for 35 years, one going on for 37, one going on for 32. And 8 wars, and I thought this would be an easier one. This is because of the animosity, the hatred. It's a little bit more difficult than we thought, but there's a chance we can get this done maybe soon.
Sir,
Remember that 25 to 30,000 people being killed a month, young people being killed a month. Steve, please.
When do you expect to make your announcement about the new Fed chair, sir? Before the end of the year? What do you think?
Over the next couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know before the end of the year, but pretty soon.
And then the Rocky Mount, North Carolina tomorrow night, tell us what your message is going to be there.
Say what?
When you go to Rocky Mount, North Carolina tomorrow night, what's your message going to be?
Well, it's not going to be that much different from what I did last night. I mean, we've had tremendous success. We're bringing prices down. We inherited a mess. And part of what we inherited was the worst inflation in 48 years. I say history, but we had the worst inflation. It drove prices up. And now we're bringing those prices down. But I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about the fact that we secured the border where literally nobody can come into our country illegally anymore. They came in from prisons and mental institutions and drug dealers and, a lot of bad people from all over the world. Venezuela emptied their prisons into our country. We had Tren de Aragua, which supposedly, the doctors don't know this, it's the meanest gang of them all. Okay, doctor? You don't have to know about it. You got other problems. But they let a lot of bad people in here. And so I think I'll be talking about that. I think I'll be talking about the tremendous success we have by sending the National Guard into various cities. D.C. is the ultimate example. People walk to work and they thank me all the time. People in the White House, they just walk to the White House from 10 blocks away. Before I came into office, they couldn't do that. They were getting badly hurt in many cases and beyond hurt, killed. So we were losing people. We were losing, on average, a person a week. Can you believe it? More. And now we haven't lost anybody in a long time. I consider the 2 people that got so badly hurt, the National Guard, that's a difference. That was terrorism. That was terrorism. And probably terrorism, maybe terrorism, because they were unhappy with the tremendous success we've had, because they don't want to see this country be successful. But Washington, D.C. now is a safe, beautiful city where the restaurants are booming, the town is booming, people walk to the restaurants with their wife or their children and have a good time. We were losing all the restaurants. We were losing our life in this. We were just the whole heritage of Washington D.C. was down the drain, and we brought it back. And now everybody's thrilled to be here. It's the hottest. It's a part of the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've become, in 10 months, the hottest country anywhere in the world. And I say it all the time, we were a dead country 1.5 years ago.
Do you expect to meet Prime Minister Netanyahu while you're down in Florida?
Yeah, he would like to see me. We haven't set it up formally, but he'd like to see me. We've had great success. Peace in the Middle East, aside from everything else. We now have peace in the Middle East. Yeah, he'll probably come to see me in Florida.
The Egyptians as well?
I'd love to have him. El Sisi, he's a friend of mine. Yeah, I'd love to have him. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Let's go. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Let's go. Let's go. Keep going. Thank you.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. You were just watching President Trump at the Oval Office signing an executive order reducing the danger level of marijuana. And he's saying that he is not legalizing the drug, but allowing more research to be done on it. Next, the U.S. announces a massive arms sale to Taiwan worth over $10 billion. Joining us to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Center for American Safety and Security. So, Taylor, good afternoon to you. I just wanted to ask you, if this is approved by Congress, it would be the largest ever weapons package to Taiwan in U.S. history, and it would exceed the total amount of arms sales to Taiwan during the Biden administration. What is your analysis on this?
Well, my analysis of this is first and foremost that I think that this is an incredibly necessary arms deal. Taiwan is an incredibly important part of U.S. national security and defense, and I think a lot of people don't understand just how big of a role that they play in the Indo-Pacific and in our defense culture. But largely, I want to highlight the fact that I think my bigger point on this is that this is just a further reflection of how many ills were done during the Biden administration and how they really let their foot off the gas on many critical areas of defense. And I think that we're unfortunately going to see the negative effects of that for many years to come.
Okay, can we go into a bit more detail about the national security impacts of Taiwan for the U.S.? Why is Taiwan such an important ally?
So Taiwan is part of the first island chain. It is a reflection of democracy and a beacon in the Indo-Pacific. I think of the third of the shipping and the supply chain in the world goes through this area. And so if China gets a hold of Taiwan and states a claim on Taiwan and invades Taiwan, then they have access to critical areas of national security, such as logistics. And such as the semiconductors and the chips that are used in the manufacturing for a lot of our defense initiatives. So there is not a single fighter pilot, drone, jet, ship, ballistic missile that we use that does not use these semiconductors that Taiwan produces. And it's estimated between 60 to 70% of all of these semiconductors and chips are manufactured from one company in Taiwan. So this is incredibly important. I think a viewer can draw the direct line in connection to the fact that if China is able to take over a nation that has the largest producer of something that the United States absolutely needs as a critical use for the support of their military, this would be detrimental, as China is not our ally.
So speaking of China, Beijing's foreign ministry responded to this. It said, quote, "This cannot save the doomed fate of Taiwan independence, but will only accelerate military confrontation and war." So in your view, does helping Taiwan defend itself decrease the chance of a conflict, or does it increase the chance?
I think people have a really strange misperception on what China is. I think that people think that They can work with the leadership in Beijing and just be nice enough to them and give them enough of what they want, and they'll change their entire military strategy. And that's simply not the case. China has been committing acts of hybrid warfare and direct warfare all over the world. They look at everything that they've done with the Belt and Road Initiative, look at the inroads that they have with Venezuela, with Iran, with Russia, look at the way that Russia and China work together on the UN Security Council to veto pretty much every single resolution that is passed or tries to pass. And so China, there is no amount of giving into China with the exception of saying, here, China, you can have it all. The world is yours. That is going to be the only way that they stop. And we as a nation have to decide, do we value the democratic and Western values that we hold dear? The rule of law, freedom of autonomy, freedom of religion, these things that are incredibly free speech, these things that are incredibly important to us as a nation. And is that something that we value? Because if it is, we have to make sure that China is kept in check. And so I don't think that any amount of placating to China is going to get them to stop doing what they want to do. And so the best way to deal with a bully is really to tell the bully that we're going to do what we want to do. And if they have to act out because of that, then so be it. But the United States defense policy should not change based on the threats of an adversary. We need to set our defense policy and move forward accordingly, regardless of what China decides to do.
Okay, can you just expand on that point? What does this tell China? Is there a message that this deal is sending?
I hope that China can see that over the last 10 months, the president is really serious about being willing to work towards a diplomatic solution. The solution here, I don't believe that Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, President Trump, I don't believe any of them's first gut reaction is to go to war with China, to fight with China, to shut China down. I think that has been reflected in the national defense policy that was released earlier this month that people can go online and read. You can see that we've pulled back on what we deem is a threat to China because I believe this administration is truly trying to work with diplomacy first. That being said, I think that China understands and realizes that if diplomatic efforts cannot be reached, if we cannot get on the same page as two global superpowers who do have the ability to destroy each other, if warranted and if necessary, that we're heading down a dark and heavy road. And I think China is having to weigh that cost right now, just in the same way that we're weighing that cost. And our administration, this Trump administration, I believe, is looking at this from a practical standpoint and really doing checks and balances and looking at the ROI of this and saying, if we can do this diplomatically, we will do it diplomatically. But if we can't, and I think that China taking Taiwan would be one of those we can't do it, then we're going to have to explore different avenues.
Well, all right, Taylor. Before we end this interview, I just want to make a correction. I said Taiwan was an ally to the U.S. earlier. It's not an official ally in the sense that Japan is an ally to the U.S., but we can say that the U.S. and Taiwan has a close partnership. So, yeah, that should do it for today. Great comments, Taylor. Thank you very much for coming on.
Great seeing you.
President Trump is set to sign a massive defense bill today. The Senate voted overwhelmingly yesterday to advance the bill, setting the policy for the Pentagon. Here's more.
The fiscal 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, is a compromise between separate measures passed earlier this year in the House and the Senate. It authorizes a record $901 billion in annual military spending, with a 4% pay raise for the troops. It also authorizes reforms to the system for acquiring military equipment and includes efforts to boost competitiveness with U.S. arch rivals China and Russia. The Senate backed the bill by 77-20 with strong support from both parties. Two of the no votes were from Republican Senators Mike Lee and Rand Paul. The House passed the bill last week by 312 to 112, also with broad bipartisan support.
Ford Motor Company is going to take a nearly $20 billion loss, mainly tied to its electric vehicle business. It's also killing several electric vehicle models. Find out more after this break.
Don't miss our special coverage of Turning Point's biggest event of the year, America Fest 2025.
This is the greatest nation on earth.
Thousands of students expected to attend the 4-day event, joined by some of the most influential voices in the conservative movement, all to honor Charlie Kirk and the principles he stood for. Watch our special coverage of the convention and our on-the-ground editions of NTD Evening News with Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern and Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7. Turning Point USA, America Fest 2025, this Thursday through Sunday on NTD.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
Hi, my name is Brady. When I was born, my parents thought everything was okay. My mom and dad were so excited to take me home.
I still get goosebumps telling this story. Several days in, his skin started to become very cold and clammy. We noticed that he had become blue around his mouth, and something was just very off.
We packed up as fast as we could. Brady stopped breathing twice on the way to the pediatrician. And that was one of the #1 things that just haunts me to this day.
I was born with a congenital heart defect called aortic coarctation. If my parents waited just one more hour to drive me to the hospital, I would not be here today. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. But not every kid is as lucky as me, which is why we need your help. Just call the number on the screen or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help. Get people trained in CPR. Get more hospitals certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. And help fund the next medical breakthroughs to help save kids like me.
When you donate to the American Heart Association, you're helping save lives like my son. And now my son is happy and healthy thanks to the support of people like you.
When you call with your $19 a month, you'll get this really cool t-shirt as a thank you. Many children die from congenital heart defects. I can't wait to grow up to become a heart surgeon and fix babies' hearts, but until then, I'll keep helping the American Heart Association. So please join me. Just call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org to become a monthly donor and help save lives.
The Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. will be renamed the Trump Kennedy Center. A center spokeswoman said in a statement that the Kennedy Center board voted unanimously for the renaming. She said the vote recognizes President Trump's work during the past year saving the institution from financial ruin and physical destruction. She added that the name reflects the bipartisan support for America's cultural center. Trump became chairman of the center earlier this year. He has promised to transform the venue into one of the greatest centers for performing arts. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt commented on the decision, saying the center will attain new levels of success and grandeur. U.S. inflation slowed more than expected in November. That's according to a report released today after being delayed by the federal government shutdown. The Labor Department says the consumer price index rose 2.7% from a year earlier, down from 3% in September, and the lowest level since midsummer. Economists had expected inflation to remain unchanged. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy, also cooled, falling to 2.6% year over year. This is the slowest pace since early 2021. Energy prices, however, climbed more than 4%, driven by higher fuel costs. Inflation remains above the Federal Reserve's 2% target, complicating decisions over interest rates. The Fed last week cut rates for a third time this year, though officials signaled fewer cuts ahead.
And so, we're making progress, the American people are making progress, but in some places, the hole that's been dug is a really deep hole, and it's going to take a while to get out. And so at what point does it become the Trump economy? Well, it's a Trump economy now. Our policies are changing people's lives, but when are we going to be able to point to numbers and say that we fixed the problem, we filled the hole that Biden dug? That'll depend on what things. So, for example, we're way past success on eggs, but there are other things that are going to take longer.
Ford Motor Company is going to take a nearly $20 billion loss, mostly tied to its electric vehicle business. Joining us to discuss is Lauren Fix, automotive expert at Car Coach Reports. Lauren, good to see you. It's been a while since we spoke. I did speak to Paul a couple of weeks ago. He had some great comments to say. How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm great. There's a lot going on in the automotive world right now, and I think people don't realize it because they're so busy with the holiday season. But one of the big things that's happening is not just Ford, but just the shift in what consumers want. Brands are finally listening, and that's a good thing.
So, Ford killing several electric vehicle models. Why do you think the company is doing this? Is it weakening EV demand or because of policies of this administration?
It's all of the above. I think they jumped on that EV bandwagon. They all jumped on that horse saying, I'm not going to push back against the government. We're going to take whatever regulations they push on us, even though they have lobbyists and everything. They agreed to go ahead and do that because there was going to be a $7,500 tax credit. That tax credit is gone. The charging infrastructure, if you want to put a charger in your garage, was $1,200. That goes away on the 31st. So once that's gone, consumers are going to pay for whatever it is they want. Just like if you wanted a gasoline-powered vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, you just go and buy it. But when they realized that they made these F-150 Lightning trucks that are all electric, they thought they were going to sell like hotcakes. They soon realized that vehicles between $50,000 and $80,000, no matter where they're built, are way outside the average person's price range. Remember, the average price of a vehicle today is about $50,000, where previous to COVID, it was $34,000. So with that huge increase, it's untouchable for many people. The cost of everything has gotten more expensive, although some things like eggs and gasoline have gotten less expensive. Electricity has gotten more expensive. So buying an EV is not the wisest choice, especially with the increase in insurance.
So you said Ford thought the F-150 Lightning will be selling like hotcakes. It's actually one of the cars that the car maker is eliminating. So I'm wondering if you could do a comparison for us. In terms of sales, how did the EV version of this pickup truck compare to the non-EV version? And just overall, how does electric compare to gas-powered?
Okay, there's a lot to that. So first off, it's hard to do a fair, even-up comparison because there was a tax credit involved, which was an incentive to get consumers to go and buy these vehicles. There was also a push for dealers to buy these vehicles and park them on their lots, which many are still sitting around. Drive by any dealer from any brand, anything that's an electric car is sitting there and not selling as well. Even Tesla's down in sales. So part of that is the infrastructure, the charging, the cost of electricity, the higher insurance rates, the infrastructure itself, depending on where you live, it's hard to get a charging. And I just had a Nissan Leaf just last week to test drive, and I'll post my review on my Car Smarts channel. But I'll tell you, getting a charge, even at a Tesla charger, some didn't allow it unless it was a Tesla product. Others, I had to wait in line in order to charge. So I basically got home and plugged it in the wall, and it took 2 days to get a full charge. And it's not the fault of the vehicle. It's the fault of the charging. Now, we'll see what my electric bill looks like when it comes back, but I know it's going to be higher because I don't own an electric vehicle. And consumers are finding themselves that if they don't own a garage, and believe it or not, only 60% of America owns a garage. So you think, well, what if you have a condo? That doesn't necessarily mean you have a garage, or you're renting. That doesn't mean you have a garage or could put a charging station in. And so all of these are just limitations. And Americans as a whole don't like to be limited in how far they can go, and including how long it takes to charge. And to give you an idea, the vehicles that I get come from New York City, and I live in Buffalo. And the usual time to drive, that's about 5 hours. Every driver that has brought an electric vehicle to me, I ask, how long does it take? And they say twice as long. So if you're willing to drive 10 hours instead of 5 hours, how does that make you want to buy that vehicle? It doesn't. And so consumers have made the statement. Ford has woken up to it. Almost every brand has switched back to saying, you know what, including Scout, which is a brand new product that's coming out from Volkswagen, has said we're going to offer what they call an E-Rev, which is an extended range. There'll be a gasoline motor combined with an electric motor, and for consumers, that just means a hybrid application. That's what consumers want. They want to be able to go wherever they want, and if they want to plug in and sit in, at a parking lot or at a drive-through or wait for your kids to come out of school, you can at 0 miles to the gallon because you're on electricity. And that's a really good combination for consumers, especially if you're leasing.
So you said that Ford has woken up to this. I'm just wondering here, because Ford's decision does not happen in a vacuum, right? We have Chinese electric car makers fully in the market. So I'm thinking in that aspect, what is the impact for Ford? Does this move at all concede some ground to Chinese EV makers?
Well, that not really, because where we are sitting on here in the United States on the largest oil underneath the ground. And in the case of China, they decided in advance, we can't beat America. We can't beat Germany in building cars. So what they decided to do was create this EV story, that this was better for the environment. But before they did that, they purchased 80 to 90% of the mines that are out there. And so therefore they can say, if you want an electric vehicle, you need a battery, you have to get it from China, so that they would control the auto industry. They do subsidize every single car brand that is made in China. And many countries are allowing Chinese vehicles to come in. That will not happen in Canada, where there's a 100% tariff, and there's no way they're going to bring Chinese cars into the United States, at least under this administration. And if they did, it would destroy our auto industry for every brand. Remember that a lot of the Japanese brands sell most of their vehicles here. The Koreans sell their vehicles here. They build them here. If the Chinese wanted to do that, they'd have to build here, which means the UAW would be standing in line saying, we need to unionize you also. And that would make those cars a very average price to everything that's out there. So what they do in other countries like Germany, and it has destroyed their auto industry, is they flood the market with low price cars, essentially half the price. So how do they stay in business? Well, their federal government, the Chinese government, subsidizes to the car brands. And so therefore, why a car that might be $40,000, they'll sell it for 20. And then, so how does the car maker stay in business? They just take Chinese government funds. That doesn't work in a global basis. It's not a fair market. And what it does is it allows consumers to think they're getting a deal, but really what they're doing is destroying their own economy. China doesn't care. Their goal is to own the auto industry. And if they ever get a chance to start selling in the US and into North America, that's probably what will happen, is it will see a lot of companies go away, and that's really bad. And currently the EU, by the way, has said just yesterday that they're going to reduce their all EV mandate. And so that's also going to hurt China, because if it's all EV, which doesn't make sense in cold climates like Norway and Germany, I mean, it gets really cold, much like the upper half of this country and into Canada. It doesn't make sense to have an EV. And so consumers are choosing to buy used gasoline powered cars, and you're watching a resurgence of gasoline powered vehicles.
Right. I mean, just look at your phone. Your phone battery in cold temperatures
yes,
reduces by, I don't know, like a significant, it feels like a significant percentage. So I just have one more question on my mind here. Can you talk to us about the rate of EV adoption in the US? What does that look like? Has it slowed since the start of this administration?
Absolutely, 100%. You had the Congressional Review Act, where President Trump signed on July 4th, that took away all of the mandates that it said you had to go all electric. So that's out the door. EPA leader Lee Zeldin went in and has removed all the powers from California. Some are still in courts right now. Some are in the Supreme Court. Once that goes through, California will no longer have the California Resources Board, which has been one state calling the rules for the other 49, which is obviously not constitutional. But what we're also seeing is all of these undoing of everything, including the auto pen. Huge story. I have that on my Car Coach Reports channel. What has happened when President Trump said anything that was signed by an auto pen doesn't exist any longer. Now, how that will hold up in court, we're soon to find out. But right now, that means that all of the mandates for electric vehicles, all of the infrastructure is gone. And this is a huge story, because what we're happening now without that $7,500 tax credit, we're most likely going to see about 4% of the cars sold being electric. So if you want an electric car, there are fantastic choices from every automaker. But many automakers like Honda have said, we're not going to make the Prologue anymore. General Motors is still making the Cadillac line mostly electric, but Ford has woken up and said, nope, that's not going to work. Stellantis has also said with their new leadership, they need to sell vehicles. They're building more gasoline and hybrid vehicles, so big changes there as well. The Koreans are still selling whatever consumers want. If you want one of their Ioniq products, they'll sell it too. If you don't, they'll just make something else. And so it depends on each car brand's business plan, but many of them have woken up to this a long time ago and were prepared. Toyota was one of the smartest. They didn't jump on the bandwagon. They still offer the Prius if you want it, but they also offer all hybrid vehicles across their lineup.
Well, all right, Lawrence, it's good to talk to you. Good to see you again. And I encourage our viewers to take a look at your article that you mentioned in this interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 men accused of profiting off a government program meant to feed hungry Americans. Details ahead on a massive SNAP benefit fraud bust. European farmers clashed with police in Brussels while protesting the EU's planned trade deal with South America. More news after this break.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Waist down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Be your own hero.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
A business jet crashed at a regional airport in North Carolina today, killing multiple people. The Federal Aviation Administration said the aircraft went down about 45 miles north of Charlotte. According to FlightAware tracking data, the small jet took off from the airport shortly after 10 a.m., but returned and was attempting to land. Weather reports showed drizzle and clouds at the time of the crash. Video captured by a nearby driver showed smoke rising from the wreckage on the runway. The National Transportation Safety Board and the FAA are investigating. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is rolling out new rules against gender transition procedures for minors. It includes cutting off federal Medicaid and Medicare funding from hospitals that provide such procedures to children. The health secretary says a recent HHS report found that these procedures impose medical dangers and lasting harm on children.
This morning, I signed a declaration. Sex-rejecting procedures are neither safe nor effective treatment for children with gender dysphoria. These procedures fail to meet professionally recognized standards of care. Medical professionals or entities providing sex-rejecting procedures to children are out of compliance with these standards of health care. This declaration is a clear directive to providers to follow the science and the overwhelming body of evidence that these procedures hurt, not help children.
The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services is proposing two new rules. The first rule prohibits hospitals that take part in Medicare and Medicaid from performing gender transition procedures on minors. The second rule prohibits federal Medicaid dollars from funding such procedures. The FDA is also issuing warning letters to manufacturers of breast binders. The HHS says violators will pay a heavy price. Kennedy says the medical industry has raked in millions of dollars by convincing children that such procedures are the only way to achieve happiness. He promises that the HHS will protect children by following the evidence and gold standard science. A shocking and massive SNAP benefits fraud bust in Boston. Two store owners are accused of trafficking millions in benefits. Here's more.
These men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves.
Massachusetts U.S. Attorney General Lee Foley detailed the accusations against two store owners, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elizme. They are the owners of Jasula Variety Store and Saul Match Mix Store, which share a single storefront.
Investigators found that both stores had exceptionally large and highly anomalous SNAP redemption volumes, far beyond what is remotely possible for businesses of their size, type, and location.
The men are accused of exchanging SNAP benefits for cash and alcohol. Foley said 1 month, one of the stores redeemed $500,000 in benefits.
Simply put, there is no plausible way SNAP-eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet, these two stores are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits. The fraud was shocking and glaring.
Foley said undercover officers used EBT cards to traffic cash at both stores. She says both defendants exchanged cash for benefits.
A scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise.
Bonner and Elizme have each been charged with food stamp fraud.
A sexual predator has been sentenced to 84 years in prison for exploitation of minors. The Justice Department says his operation spanned nearly every state. 31-year-old Austin Lawless of Colorado is guilty of 13 counts of sexual exploitation of a child, 5 counts of sex trafficking of a minor, 2 counts of advertising child sexual abuse material, and possession of child sexual abuse material. Authorities say Lawless used social media to coerce minors into producing sexually explicit images and videos. He reportedly hid his identity, feigned romantic interest in victims, and threatened victims with dissemination of their sexual content. He also sex trafficked at least 5 minor victims. The Justice Department says it identified 84 victims from nearly every state and at least 5 foreign countries. The FBI calls this one of the most egregious forms of exploitation it has investigated. The agency says it's committed to dismantling networks of exploitation that prey on children. Violent scenes erupted in Brussels today as European farmers protested the EU's planned trade deal with South America. This echoes other demonstrations that erupted over the past week in several EU countries, including France and Greece. NTD international correspondent David Vez has the story.
Tensions flared in Brussels on Thursday as thousands of European farmers protested against the EU's planned free trade deal with South America's Mercosur bloc, just as EU leaders gathered for a crucial summit. Around 7,000 farmers descended on the Belgian capital, with nearly 1,000 tractors blocking roads around EU institutions. While most of the demonstration was peaceful, clashes erupted near the European Parliament. Protesters burned tires and hay, lit fires, and hurled vegetables at police, who responded with tear gas and water cannons. Black smoke filled nearby streets, and parts of the Parliament complex were evacuated. Farmers said the Mercosur deal would expose them to cheaper imports from countries like Brazil and Argentina, produced under looser environmental and health standards. They fear it would drive down prices and threaten their livelihoods. Many also oppose planned reforms to EU farm subsidies, warning of further pressure on the sector. French President Emmanuel Macron said France would not support the deal without stronger safeguards for farmers, a position echoed by Italy, Poland, Hungary and others. Their opposition could be enough to block the agreement. Supporters, including Germany and Spain, argue the deal would boost EU exports and strengthen Europe's global trade position amid rising competition from China and trade tensions with the United States.
Lawmakers are sounding the alarm after an investigation uncovers how the Chinese Communist Party is exploiting U.S. tax dollars to fund its own military and tech advancements, including sensitive nuclear technology. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
In the past 2 years, $6 billion worth of research and more than 4,000 papers published within the Department of Energy involved collaboration with Chinese researchers. Half of that research is fueling China's defense and industrial base. Some of the Chinese entities involved are among the leading universities for defense and nuclear weapons research. This is according to a newly released report by the Select Committee on the CCP. The report is not hypothetical, congressional investigators say, detailing hundreds of instances in which Chinese researchers received awards after their collaboration with U.S. researchers led to breakthroughs. For example, collaboration with a U.S. professor helped the CCP in its research into high-yield explosives and Chinese nuclear weapons development. At the same time, lawmakers are pushing legislation to stop Americans from unknowingly propping up CCP entities that threaten U.S. national security. Congressman Andy Barr and Senator John Cornyn leading on the Fight China Act.
We're codifying President Trump's America First investment policy with this legislation, which will stop the flow of capital and know-how into these sensitive technologies that threaten our national security.
The chairman of the China Committee described the situation as deeply alarming and called on the Department of Energy to stop the exploitation and protect hard-earned taxpayer dollars. To address this, lawmakers are calling for tighter rules, like requiring the government to disclose research ties with China. The Department of Energy said it's reviewing the report and vows to ensure the integrity and security of DOE programs. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Turning Point USA is hosting its annual America Fest conference. This is the first conference since the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. The event is expected to draw 30,000 attendees to the Phoenix Convention Center over a course of 4 days. TPUSA says in a post on X, quote, "Our first America Fest without Charlie begins today. Though we feel his absence in every way, what he built will continue here louder and stronger than ever." Vice President J.D. Vance will be the keynote speaker this Sunday. Other top speakers include Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, House Speaker Mike Johnson, DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard, border czar Tom Homan, and media personality Tucker Carlson. Ukrainian peace negotiators are en route to the United States. President Zelensky said today they plan to meet the U.S. negotiating team on Friday and Saturday. Stay tuned for more news after this break.